And oh yeah, by the way, did I mention there's dog cloning in this?
Welcome to SinCast, presented by CinemaSins.
This episode of SinCast is brought to you by Mubi, a curated online cinema streaming exceptional films from around the globe. Each day, Mubi introduces a new gem and you have 1 month to watch it. From cult classics to acclaimed masterpieces, every film is hand-selected by experts. Go to Mubi.com/CinemaSins for your special offer. All right, everybody, welcome to the SinCast. This is Chris Atkinson from CinemaSins, joined as always by the voice of CinemaSins, Jeremy Scott.
That's me.
And from Music Video Sins, Music Video Sins, Barrett Share.
Music, hello.
Yes,
This is different.
We're doing a different thing this month. It's all cow-related songs. Today we're going to go back on our road trip.
On the road again. The most time-honored tradition of all, the road trip. Oh, the places you'll go.
Are we there yet?
No.
Are we there yet?
No.
Are we there yet?
No. Speaking of cows.
That's right. We're going to be going to Wisconsin.
Oh, I love Wisconsin.
Which I thought for some reason there'd be more in this state.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's just because of, Green Bay maybe and Milwaukee, and there's like a thing, Laverne and Shirley.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I actually, I think because we're going to get to a few TV shows at the end of this too, I think that's why I thought so too, is that because you've seen it in serial format and stuff like that 70s show and Laverne and Shirley and Happy Days and stuff like that, that it's just out there in the ether. And apparently not a whole hell of a lot of movies in there. But I love Wisconsin.
Yeah, man.
Used to go up there when we lived in Chicago. It's basically an hour drive to Kenosha and to Lake Geneva, and it's just awesome. That's where my family's from, too. Half of my family.
Mm-hmm. No wonder you're a Green Bay Packers fan.
That's right.
I've never been.
You've never been?
No, despite all the years I spent in northeastern Illinois and Indiana and Michigan, I just never made it over to Wisconsin.
It was my happy place. Like, I could feel my blood pressure dropping as soon as we crossed the state line, because you get to this place called the Cheese Castle, and the Cheese Castle is a castle in Kenosha that sell cheese, and it got all corporate and commodified and everything after a while, but it's still the Cheese Castle, and we still hit it every time we went up there.
The first movie is Wisconsin as Fuck, American Movie, which is a documentary about Mark Borchardt and his quest to make a film called Northwestern. But in the middle of the filming of it, he decides that he's going to have to complete this horror movie to get because it's the only thing he's got time and money for, called Colvin. And this movie's such a delight. I don't think I've seen a documentary more than this one.
Oh, really? You've seen it multiple times?
I've seen this a lot of times.
I've seen it several times too. It's such an engaging. It's weird because Mike, his buddy, is kind of the star of the show, right?
Yeah.
He steals it because he's just a blank canvas. He's a recovering addict and stuff like that. He's a recovering gambler, but he still like buys scratch off and lottery tickets and shit like that. But like, they're so engaging. This guy, even with all of his problems, Mark struggles with alcohol and stuff like that, and being all over the place. He's such an engaging dude. You just can't keep your eyes off him.
Yeah. So, yes, Mike Shank, he is kind of the star of this, but Mark Borchardt is pretty much the star of this.
Yeah.
Like, Shank steals a lot of the stuff, especially there's a point where they're like all standing there in the middle of a parking lot or whatever, and just out of nowhere, Mike's like, I bet Metallica never had to wait for anything in their entire lives, or something like that.
It's so great.
Something like that. And there's a point where Mark needs him to scream for some ADR, and he puts out the most wicked scream there is. And the camera goes over to Mark, and he's got this like, yeah. And he's like, that was wicked, man. But yeah, it's funny because he starts off wanting to make this movie called Northwestern because of something blah blah blah, like the country is, the state that he knows is changing and there won't be these places to film anymore, all the woods and the farms and all that. And then he decides, all right, well, I've got this movie that I started making called Coven, and I'm gonna make that. It's about people who are trying to battle addiction, but the people who are in the meetings are actual like devil worshippers or something like that. And as he describes it, he's like, it's about this person who goes into this group to get help for his alcohol addiction, but they're not that helpful, the group.
Oh my God. This is up there like with King of Kong and shit like that.
Yeah.
In entertaining documentaries.
It really is, like the entire thing. And even when it gets to where it's like on that borderline of like, this is kind of sad and stuff, like, especially when he is drinking and they're watching the Super Bowl and Green Bay won that, was that the Patriots that they beat in the 90s?
Yep.
He's like already trash before the game even starts. And then he's just like, man, fuck these guys and fuck this and fuck that and everything. And his dad keeps on coming in and saying, Mark, the language, Mark. and he just keeps, and he's like, he's really like, he's not cool in that situation.
No, that's an intense scene.
Yeah.
Because he's so energetic and enthusiastic and happy-go-lucky, and then when you see it, he takes a dark turn.
Yeah,
it doesn't go that way for the rest of the movie, but like you really see like how many demons he's battling.
There is a great scene too where he's trying to get his grandfather to say it's all right, it's okay, there's something to live for. Jesus told me so. And it needs to sort of match up what he's supposedly saying when they're on the road and everything. They didn't have sound of it and everything. So like, he's like, all right, take one, man. And he's like, it's all right. And then it's just like, all right, take 33, man. And then it's like, it's all right. And he keeps on like, I don't believe in what you're doing. I don't believe in this at all. He's like, all right, man, just more enthusiasm. And then it's like, it gets to like 60 or something or whatever. But his grandfather is a character as well.
Oh yeah.
It's a high recommend here.
It's all downhill from here, Wisconsin.
Yeah, that's right. There are some pretty good ones though. Away We Go, which was Sam Mendes directing John Krasinski and Maya Rudolph.
Sam Mendes made that movie?
Yes, he did.
I've seen like 10 minutes of this and have yet to be pulled in. It's on the movie channels almost all the time.
It's actually not that bad.
No, I actually really like this movie.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not really a romantic comedy, right? Because they're already together and she's pregnant, and they're just looking for places to live, one of which is Milwaukee, which is the Maggie Gyllenhaal character.
Oh, yeah.
Who's named Ellen, but she spells it L-N, like the letters. And she's like a super progressive, like helicopter parent. Like they don't allow strollers and shit like that.
Yeah.
It's great. That's a great
Yeah,
scene.
it's basically a road movie where they keep running into different couples who have kids and different ways to take care of them or whatever. And the who is it that they run into Alice and Janney and Jim Gaffigan, I believe.
Yeah.
Have Alice and Janney is just awful to her kids. Just awful.
And they're awful to each other, aren't they?
Yeah. But I kind of enjoyed this movie. It is something that you don't expect Sam Mendes' name to be attached to, but it's good.
It is.
All right.
I actually Maya Rudolph will show up again in a second, but like, yeah, she's got, I think, some range too. She doesn't usually do a whole lot of dramatic stuff. I don't really remember her doing anything specifically dramatic, but she's got some dramatic beats in this movie.
All right.
And she's really good. And this is John Krasinski, I guess, right in the middle of that Office run, where he's starting to kind of branch out a little bit.
Oh yeah. I think isn't the impetus behind the trip is that his parents, Jeff Daniels and Catherine O'Hara, are going to France.
Yeah,
and
so they're looking for.
They're going to live there,
yeah.
and so like they thought that they would be able to get taken care of there, and their parents are like, we're jetting out. So it becomes this big road trip after that. But anyway, good movie. Then there is BASEketball. Debatable as to whether this is good or not. I love it.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
I think It's not great because Parker and Stone didn't direct it, right?
Right.
They
It's
didn't write
David
it.
Zucker.
It's David Zucker, and it's kind of combining the zaniness of both of those guys, and it's a little bit disparate, but the stuff that works really works.
Yeah, I believe Parker and Stone agreed to do this movie because Zucker was a god to them, like Airplane and Naked Gun and all that. They were huge fans. Zucker, I believe this is based on a game that he and his brother came up with, and they know it was completely stupid, but they thought it would be a funny movie. And I agree, it is.
Yes.
There are moments in this movie that are horrible, but then there's some that are genius.
Yeah.
And it's like, what the hell is going on with this movie? But yeah, it's about this, the Trey Parker's they started off by making him the underdog he's the one who dropped Reggie Jackson's third home run in the 1977 World Series, and then like he's sort of a loser at all sorts of sports, and then they have this game that they're just kind of like inventing rules as it goes along, where you shoot a basketball and you can shoot a single, a double, a triple, or a home run. Depending on what you're feeling at the time. And then they start adding all the stuff like psych outs to the points. And like, if you get the rebound and score on somebody's rebound, you get points and all that. So the game is very simple, but, there's some really funny things in this.
Oh yeah.
Also taps into, I could be alone, but for that glorious window post-college before any of my guy friends started getting married, I lived in a house with 4 or 5 guys for like 2 years. We made up like 5 different games while we were there, and each one we were obsessed with for about 3 weeks, and then it would fizzle. One was like we were playing like a basic version of Foursquare inside the house, and then we just moved all the furniture out of the living room, and we made the walls part of the action, and so it became like cubed Foursquare, and we started making up augmented rules, and we called it Sport Ball. We played it for probably about 4 weeks. We were obsessed with it. We would come home from work and like tear off our work shirts, and I'm next in line. We made up another one called Car Wars with Matchbox cars, and it was like shuffleboard. Only you could also intentionally wipe out your opponent's cars, and you got points if your cars were left standing upright at the end, and if they were flipped upside down, your opponent got points. We played that for like 3 weeks. So I think that's probably pretty common. Granted, most people are probably not in their mid-20s when they're doing this. They're more like 10-year-olds. But I think it taps into that. Everybody made up games or tweaked rules to standard games. So that was the appeal of the movie for me.
This is obviously before internet porn.
But it was still in the dial-up ages. So,
so you had more time on your hands. So to
hang
speak.
on, I'm going to download this image, and then we can play a couple of games.
And Parker and Stone are self-deprecating about this movie as well. I mean, in South Park, they even made a joke about it when this is the Passion of the Christ episode where they go and try to get money back from Mel Gibson for watching Passion of the Christ, and then they say, "Well, we'll do the exact same thing we did when we went to go see BASEketball." So I don't think they look at this movie with high regard either, but they're fun in it, and it's just one of those movies. Like, yes, if you haven't watched it and you decide to watch it, just know there's a lot of terrible things that are stupid in this. Then there are stuff that's just genius, and I don't know where you land on that. I love the movie in the end. Then there's a movie called Breaking In that came out last year.
Oh, it's like the reverse of no. I pass it every time I see it because it got terrible reviews.
It's pretty awful.
It's like a mother trying to break back into her home after a home invasion.
Yeah, so they go up to this secluded cabin, like her and her kids, Gabrielle Union, and they're taking over their father or uncle or something like that is a tech head and all that stuff, and has like this super security system. But the robbers are already in the house, and so somehow Gabrielle Union gets separated, and the kids are in the house with the robbers, and she has to break in.
It feels pretty terrible. It sounds pretty...
It's actually a pretty good premise, I thought. She's actually very good in it.
She's always good.
But the movie itself, it's a step above that sex trafficking movie, that Patton... Sorry.
sex trafficking movie, huh? Taken?
No. Yes. The one with Omar Epps. Omar Epps?
Taken is Liam Neeson.
No, was it? What is it called? You've seen it. The Paula Patton.
Oh, is it? It's got a K in the name. It's called Traffic.
Traffic. That's basically Taken. Like with.
All right.
There was on the other day was Bring It On.
Oh,
and Gabrielle Union's in that. She's
Yeah.
awesome in that.
She is.
It's hard to believe. Like Gabrielle Union back in the she was 28 when she did Bring It On. That's
Are you serious?
Yes.
played a high schooler.
Playing high school, and she did the same thing in 10
Wow.
Things I Hate About You. She was 27 in that.
Jeez, she's 46.
Yeah.
She looks incredible. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, she's unbelievable.
Wow. Good for her. Isn't she married to Dwayne Wade? Is that?
Yes, she is.
Power couple right there.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have Bridesmaids.
Yeah.
Oh,
What do you guys
wow.
think about Bridesmaids?
You
I like
know,
Bridesmaids, I think, more than you guys do.
I like it okay. I think it's good. I think when it came out, I feel like our culture was maybe desperate
Mm-hmm.
for an all-female gross-out comedy to be a home run, and so we championed it maybe a little harsher than we should have. I don't think it's all that a bag of chips. I'd rather watch Tropic Thunder or The Hangover any day of the week and twice on Sunday.
That's not, I mean, there's only one gross out scene, but that gross out scene is fucking gross.
Yeah.
It's so gross that I don't even know how you think that's funny. Like,
Yeah, I wouldn't find that funny with men doing it.
Well, that's the thing, right? If you substitute men in the scene, does it make it okay?
No.
Make it funny? Make
Yeah.
it like that's what I was sitting there doing. A lot of these scenes that we're talking about here, I was like, yeah, I don't find this funny at all. And I think some people would be ready to point the finger and say, oh, you'd be laughing at that if it was a bunch of guys.
Yeah.
And the answer is no. I don't
Yeah.
like that type of humor at all.
I guess it's the novelty of it that you really hadn't seen anything like that.
No.
Mainstream, at least.
and it's
being
funny. I'm not trying to say it's trash.
Yeah.
I'm just saying I think I'm the guy who thinks the Beatles were a little overrated. So if I'm saying your movie was a little overrated, that's not an insult.
Melissa, this is prime Melissa McCarthy, though. Like, this is her being unhinged, but also not too unhinged to where she's let loose and flailing about wildly.
Well, and she's not the main focus.
Yeah.
I think that's part of the answer.
did you hear that she based some of her look on Guy Fieri?
Oh, really?
On who?
Guy Fieri. She's got like the sunglasses on the back of the head, and
Me.
like the spiky hair.
I really do like Kristen Wiig in it.
Yep.
And I think Rose Byrne, who's not really playing like a funny, outwardly funny character, is very funny in this because she's constantly trying to one up Kristen Wiig in this whole thing. And like it's almost like the South Park where they go to the ski resort and the guy just starts picking on Stan out of nowhere and he's like I'm gonna race you down the hill, Darsh, and they're like haven't even met each other yet. And he's like I'm gonna beat you and all that.
Maya Rudolph is good in this too.
Yeah.
Oh, she has that great line about because they're having that argument, and Kristen Wiig's like, "I bet you went with her to get your asshole bleached." And then they get to this fever pitch, and Maya Rudolph's like, "I did get my asshole bleached, and it looks great." Anyway.
Then we have Dahmer. Yeah, of a lot of the things that Milwaukee is known for, unfortunately, Jeffrey Dahmer is one of them.
There's a lot of serial killers up in Wisconsin.
Yeah,
Well, not a lot, but like Ed
but
Gein.
a lot of famous ones.
Yeah. When you really want to do it right,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
go to Wisconsin.
I never saw this though. It's got Jeremy Renner in it. Renner is a pretty good dead ringer for Dahmer.
He really is. This was 2002, so it's before Renner like really got famous, and he's super skinny and he plays the part really, really well. The movie itself isn't like gangbusters. It's not like a great movie, but the content is so fucking disturbing.
Yeah,
That I mean, this is like all time evilness, like incarnate. Like the stuff that he did to these boys and men that would come in to his apartment. You couldn't think this up in like your worst nightmares.
yeah. This is probably the first story that ever scared me as a kid. I think was this 91, 92 when this happened.
Somewhere around that, yeah.
Dahmer was a shorthand punchline to a lot of things, but
yeah,
this
it was 91.
And I'm really glad that at 14 that I didn't hear all the details. All I heard was that he was killing people, and you heard some refrigerator stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't hear about all the other stuff until much later, and I'm glad. I'm very glad.
I had a girlfriend once that liked refrigerator stuff.
Yeah.
I'm trying to even figure out what that means.
No. Oh, boy. And I've never seen the Dahmer movie. Let's move on.
Then we have the remake of Dawn of the Dead, starring Sarah Polley. I really liked this. This is Zack Snyder, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is the one in the mall with Ving Rhames.
Yeah. Yes.
Finally! I've seen it.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah.
You like this?
I like the part where the guy is on the other thing across the way and they held up messages and talked to each other.
Yeah.
And then they basically get people killed trying to rescue them.
Well, yeah, because they like Ving Rhames they've got like a whiteboard, and he's telling them to take out certain zombies. And what is it, like Burt Reynolds or like Jay Leno or something like that?
Yeah.
And he's like, I know who you're talking about. He takes the guy out that looks vaguely like Burt Reynolds.
Right.
Yeah, I liked this movie.
And there's that whole scene, too, where I think it's that cover of Down with the Sickness.
Yeah.
And you mother, get up. Come on, get down with the sickness. Come on and get up. And they're like just shooting these zombies and everything. Yeah, this is really good. This is it's one of those rare remakes that it may not be to the height of the original, but it's at least close.
I think it's right there with me because I love the original. But this one, I don't know, just hits a sweet spot for me because it's got this weird, like almost hypercolor sheen to it. Mm-hmm. And so it like really pops off of the screen. But the personalities are like 10% too much. Like Ty Burrell's character is like is an asshole, but then like 10% more of an asshole, right. You know. And but it's good stuff.
And James Gunn wrote the screenplay, right?
Yes, he did.
Then we have Dogma, which is of course a cross country movie from Kevin Smith, starring everybody
in the world.
Yep,
at least in the late 90s.
Yeah. This is the one Kevin Smith that I've only seen like a couple of times.
Really?
Yeah, of his comedies, of the Jersey, whatever you want to call it, trilogy, universe, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I've only seen this one twice, so I can't remember exactly what we're going cross country for in this.
Aren't they going to like the movie headquarters or something?
No, they have to get to Buddy Christ. So they're going, these fallen angels, Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, are sentenced because they tried to throw a coup against God and got kicked out of heaven, and they were sentenced to live in Wisconsin.
Okay.
And there's that funny line. It's Linda Fiorentino, I think. And Alan Rickman is an angel, shows up, and she's like, or he tells her about this story, and he's like, they were cast out of heaven to live in the worst place in the world. And she's like, hell? And he's like, no. Wisconsin in that great Alan Rickman stuff. And so they're trying to get over to this church in New Jersey, actually, that proves, or to prove that God is not infallible. And because the universe is based on the fact that God is infallible, then they would basically destroy the universe. And they want to do that because they don't want to live in purgatory anymore. It's too much movie. It's too many parts, too many moving parts, too many characters. But if you shaved off a little bit of it, it would be awesome. I like it as it is.
Yeah.
There's that weird, like, 5-year period where Linda Fiorentino was, like, everywhere.
Yeah, she was hot shit, man.
And then she just, I guess, had enough.
I think she may have a reputation.
Oh, really?
Oh.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that, but I think she might have a reputation. Being a little difficult. But yeah, there was a point there where the first time I ever saw her was in The Last Seduction, which she was amazing in that. And I think that movie would have gotten her an Oscar nomination had it not been an HBO movie first. And there was those arcane rules about Oscar nominations. But that, and then of course Men in Black and Jade.
Jade.
Oh yeah.
Be
Jade.
like David Caruso and Jade.
And Chaz Palminteri.
Yes.
This is not as funny of a movie as something like Chasing Amy or Clerks or Mallrats. It's ham-handed at times when it's trying to like call out Catholic dogma and stuff like that. You can see that there's a clear agenda there, while still some affection there. It's got some good stuff in it though.
There were people who, no, I'm not saying a lot, but there were people who held up posters and protested this movie outside the Hollywood 27.
Yep.
Oh, I can imagine. This was 99. Yes, it was right after I left.
Yeah.
The story that I get out of this, that I get more interest out of, is just the fact that Jason Mewes had just gotten through like rehab or something, and Kevin Smith was basically giving this a last chance to him and everything, and he was really worried because you had all these great stars on set. You had Alan Rickman, you had Salma Hayek, you had Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, all these people. And he's like, man, if this guy fucks this up, man, it's just that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And he came in and he's like, remember, you need to know your lines. Well, he not only knew his own lines, he knew everybody else's lines too. So that's a story that I love hearing him talk about when it comes to Dogma.
I also love that at one of the protests of, I think it was Dogma, Kevin Smith pretended to be a protester. Interviewed by a news station outside his own movie. That's pretty fucking awesome.
Yeah, it is.
Then we have The Great Outdoors. John Candy, Dan Aykroyd, Annette Bening in an early.
I've never seen this.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I have. This was a movie I was dying to watch when it came out. I think it was 88.
It was 1988.
And there were some jokes in there that I didn't get, obviously. I was 11. I didn't know why Annette Bening would like to be on the spin cycle.
Yeah, no, all I remember is, as a kid, the only thing that really attracted me was the grizzly bear and, shooting off his hair and then shooting off the hair on his backside.
Yeah, and there's all those, your typical, like, they're in a cave, it has dynamite, the dynamite's wet.
Mm-hmm.
They gotta kill a bear in this. There's what else is it? Oh, the probably the most famous scene is when they're in the restaurant and he has to eat the old 96er.
Yeah.
And it's this 96-ounce piece of steak. You have to eat everything on the plate. So it's John Candy. So you're like, oh yeah, he's gonna down this. But there's a whole scene where he's like struggling through that last whatever, and he gets all of it done. And there's just a little bit of like scraps, like fat and gristle and stuff like that. And the chef comes by and he goes, "You're not done yet." And he's like, and Dan Aykroyd's like, "What do you mean? There's nothing but gristle and fat on that plate." And he's like, "Uh-huh." And the cook's like, "Bon appetit." This movie's not good, but but
it's screwball. It's like I went back and watched like Spies Like Us, and what's the other? Well, the Chevy Chase one that we were Funny Farm, like stuff in around this area of talented comedians, probably getting well paid, probably doing all kinds of fun stuff.
Yeah, man, yeah.
Where they're just fun. It's not rocket science. This movie, it's just fun.
Yeah. Howard Deutsch, who would eventually marry Leah Thompson, and that's why we have Zoe Deutsch and her sister. John Hughes wrote the screenplay.
Yeah,
but
I'd like to see this again. This is.
I'm actually very
movie.
surprised it has a 6.6 on the IMDb, and I haven't seen it in forever, so maybe it holds up a little bit.
You think that's higher than you expected?
Yeah, I thought this would be like a 5.9 or something. When I looked it up, but I remember enjoying this as a kid. I haven't seen it in forever.
Yeah.
Then Lars and the Real Girl.
Have you seen this?
I saw it once. I liked it. I didn't. It had been gushed about to me, and so I was a little. I didn't want to gush when I was done.
Oh, really?
I liked it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Ryan Gosling. He has this. I guess he's in a relationship with this sex doll.
Basically.
When did this come out?
2007.
Yeah, it's been since then, but I remember this really connecting with me in a weird way. He's so isolated as a person because of his mental health and his upbringing that he orders this sex doll, and it starts to help him communicate with not only his family, but also the community. And because the community is so relieved to see him come out of his shell even a little bit, they start going along with it. Like everybody says that treats her as a real person.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's a real girl.
Yeah, I mean it's almost like Charlie Kaufman-esque, right? Where it's like it's a little bit absurd to where there's no way that this would happen, but it's charming.
What I remember thinking was that, and now there have been a lot of evidence since that Ryan Gosling is a great actor, but I remember being struck when I saw this at how good he was and how subdued he was. But yeah, I couldn't speak too clearly about it. It's been a while.
Between this and I think Half Nelson came out a few years afterwards, right?
It's around the same time.
Oh, really?
Nelson, yeah, because I was in New York for both of them.
Oh, okay. Well, those two are really what sold me on Ryan Gosling as an actor, because before then, I don't know exactly what he had been in, but
The Notebook.
The Notebook.
Remember
and
the Titans?
The Newton Boys and what was it? The Two for the Money. God, the Sandra Bullock thing we were just talking about.
Murder by Numbers.
Yeah. Paint by numbers.
Money by numbers.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, he definitely showed a massive amount of range in those two.
It's funny, this movie came out, and then not too long after that, Mel Gibson was in that Jodie Foster one called The Beaver, which was basically the same sort of kind of...
Yeah, and that was supposed to be his comeback.
Yeah, it was. Supposed to be.
Fuck that guy.
I remember enjoying Lars and the Real Girl, but it has been since 2007 since I've seen it.
It's a good movie.
Another movie I haven't seen in forever, but I know is great, is Michael Clayton.
Yeah.
Oh, baby.
You say all the Tom Wilkinson stuff is in Milwaukee.
Yeah, when he has his breakdown and all that stuff, and Michael Clayton comes to visit him, he's in Milwaukee.
In the very beginning?
Yes, and I believe he actually stays in Milwaukee until the end of his character arc. Maybe he goes back to New York.
Tom Wilkinson, he runs into him with a bag full of French bread loaves in the city.
Okay, so he does go back to New York.
Yeah.
It's a New York movie, too. I'm just putting it in.
Okay, I'm just trying
Wisconsin.
to place the Wisconsin. I don't know where it is. The movie fucking rules.
Yes, it
rules
does.
hard. And Tilda Swinton, is that?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Robert Downey Jr. George Clooney is playing not Robert Downey Jr. He's basically a law firm's fix-it man. And he's good. He's good at it. And then there's corruption, there's millions at stake, and something's being investigated. It's not quite what it seems, and who's the fall guy, who's the save guy, I don't know. Really good acting. Really, really good acting. One of my favorite scenes of all time is the scene when Clooney confronts Tilda Swinton at the very, very end.
Yeah.
Just outstanding.
That was the first...
I am not the guy you killed.
That was the first time I really had experienced... applause in a theater, and I was in New York when this movie came out too, and it was the first time I had noticed this clapping phenomenon when I was in New York, because I never saw that before. Now it could be just that I didn't go to very many movies with audiences. I saw everything by myself and everything, but like that scene when he shows up and they make the reveal, that was everybody just clapping in the theater and everything, and it was like I was sitting there going, interesting, but yeah, this movie's really good. Tony Gilroy is another guy who has made almost nothing but great stuff. There's a couple movies I still need to see of his that
and he directed The Born with Renner, right?
Yes.
And I think he wrote the other Bourne movies.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember, because Dan Gilroy did Nightcrawler and some other movie.
Velvet Buzzsaw, wasn't it?
Oh, it could be. But Tony Gilroy, let me look at his he's only directed 4 movies. Bourne Legacy, which you said, Duplicity, Michael Clayton, and some sort of HBO First Look, but he's mostly known as a writer.
Isn't Duplicity, is that Julia Roberts?
And Clive Owen.
Yeah.
And I thought it was a fun movie. I mean, it's not great, but
it's not as good as the other movie that Julia Roberts and Clive Owen made together.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Oh yeah.
The Michael Clayton, the scene that you're talking about is so great, because he's got nefarious purposes for doing this in the first place, but like he's offended. Not that she was necessarily trying to kill me. It's that you had the audacity to try to take me out.
When my wife and I were first married and didn't know how to communicate very well, a lot of times arguments would escalate just because of misinterpretations. And there were a lot of times that I would get offended that what she had thought I had done, which I hadn't, was so stupid. I would never do that because I'm smart. How dare you think I'm dumb enough to try and like do that or what have you? And so I connect to that here because you're right. There is a layer of this that's like, you stupid woman. I know. Like, you write me a check. This is how I know all the secrets already. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great because that shows that the characters know. The movie knows the situation here. Like, I think in a lesser movie, they wouldn't even have brought that up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It would have just been like, oh, well, he's the main character, got to kill that guy, and everybody's like, oh, okay, I see. Blah, blah, blah. But the fact that he brings that up is such an interesting and fun part of that whole thing. Then we have Mr. 3000. I've only seen parts of this, but I know the main gist of this. Bernie Mac is a retired baseball player, and he retired when he got his 3,000th hit. Then somebody went back and did all nerdy shit and found out that one of his hits, actually 3 or 4 of his hits, didn't count because they were rain delayed or something like that.
Kind of like the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, kind of like the Kentucky Derby. So he gets back. I think he plays with the Brewers, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does.
He plays with the Brewers just to get those hits to get to the 3,000 again. And of course, it's your typical sports movie. He does it just for that at first, and everybody hates him. Mm-hmm. And then he starts like becoming like a person everybody likes by the end of it and everything.
And then the kid in the outfield starts waving his hands up and down to signify the Angels.
Yep.
And then the kid with the lightning laser rocket arm comes into relief pitch.
Yeah, and he loses his ability. So the only way he can get people out is by walking the player and then playing nanny nanny boo boo games until they can get it. He can get him out. Yeah.
I never saw Mr. 3000. Is it any good?
No. He's an asshole. He's like, and the trick about these movies, like Bruce Almighty and Mr. 3000, stuff like that, is to get actors that are so fucking likable that they can be the assholiest assholes ever, and it'll fool you into thinking they've been a good person this whole time until the very, very end. Mm-hmm. And this is a good example of that, because Bernie Mac is so fucking funny, even when he's being an asshole, that like by the time he comes around at the end, you're like, oh yeah, he's had a heart of gold this whole time.
Yeah.
But it's a bad movie.
Yeah.
And you know, just the insanity that statisticians, even like, what was this, 2004 that statisticians would be that bad in that they would give him the wrong amount of hits his entire career and that, you know, he thought he had 3,000 is pretty ludicrous on its own. Although
it was back in 95 when he quit, though, because he had that 3,000th, right?
Yeah.
Because he's 47 when he comes back.
Yeah, still, even then in 95, I mean, it would have had to have been like 1930 for this to really be like to be a thing. But I guess there are things that you can look back on even in modern history and say, well, should that have counted or not or whatever? But I don't think that's this. I think this is like stuff that you knew not to count.
Yep.
And unless he was just like counting it on his own and just like keeping his own records, you know, I don't know how. Yeah. Then we have Starman. This is one of the first early movies I used to watch all the freaking time. Yeah. John Carpenter did this. Jeff Bridges is the title character, and Karen Allen is the girl he falls in love with. Ooh. And it was shot. Some of it was shot here in Tennessee.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. It's set in is it in Milwaukee? No, it's a fictional town.
Yeah, this is another kind of a road trip type of a movie, isn't it? Because they're on the interstate for a lot of it.
That's true. Yeah, he falls to earth in like Chippewa Falls or something like that. Chickamauga Bay. It's a real town.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's where they meet, and then they have to travel to get back to his location to go back.
And this is another Jeff Bridges has a weird accent movie.
He does. He has. Oh God, what is the line where they fuck? And because she's and because he's magic, he impregnates her.
Yeah.
And he leans over, he's like, I just made a baby for you.
yeah.
I want to see that scene.
Oh, no, I just gave you a baby.
Yeah. And she's like, no, that's impossible, blah, 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 blah. And no, I'm
He's like,
magic.
no, you fucking Starman.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then there's a point where like she asks him, I can't remember. It's towards the end where she's asking him something, and he's like, "The baby will know."
Yeah, because he's like the baby is imbued with like all of his knowledge, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like he's human. He's not Star Baby.
Yeah.
He's not like 2001.
Right. But yeah, it's one of those. Isn't it the guy in the Untouchables that's chasing after them in this?
Oh, who is it?
Nitty?
It's the guy with the glasses who is touchable at the end of Untouchables.
Oh, the nerdy IRS guy.
Yeah, isn't that who's following them?
Treasury Secretary guy.
Charles Martin Smith.
Yeah, it is Charles Martin.
Nice work.
But yeah, it's one of those. They know he's an alien. They're chasing after him, and then by the end of it, the ship comes down, and
This is a good movie.
it's a really good movie.
Does it ET at the end?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I haven't seen this. I always
He goes back. Yeah, he goes back at the end.
I always get this confused with The Last Starfighter.
Oh yeah, and it came out around the same time.
So that's why, because
Yeah.
they're very similar sounding, spacey, but they're nothing alike in actual content.
It's really good, and Jeff Bridges got nominated for an Academy Award for this.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Of all of like his performances, you think of like Starman. I guess I would think of it because I've seen it so much, but like,
Is that where the song's from?
No.
Man, that'd be cool if it was.
David Bowie traveled to the future.
Did he write it before the movie?
Yes, long before the movie.
I don't know that.
John Carpenter does have there's a great soundtrack in this that he did that, and especially towards the end that,
Yeah.
and then some recent artist has used that as part of their like, I can't remember who.
Really?
Yeah, because I remember after we watched Escape Room and we went to that sushi place, they were playing that song
Really?
in there, and I was like, is this Starman?
Oh, that's right.
And anyway, interesting. Last Starfighter came out the summer of 1984. Starman came out December of 1984.
Oh, wow.
Nick Castle, who was a longtime John Carpenter like disciple guy, directed the Last Starfighter.
Oh, wow. Oh, there's
What
a
the
connection.
hell? Seriously.
Then we have The Night Listener. Robin Williams, Toni Collette.
Yeah, have you seen this? This seems like it's right up your alley.
I feel like I have.
He's a New York radio personality, but like overnight. And this is such a weird movie that is better in concept. Have you seen this?
I have not.
It's better in concept than it is execution, but it's really, really interesting. It's about this. He has a call in from a young man who is dying of AIDS, right? And he's linked to his caregiver, who's Toni Collette, and she's blind. And so, like, he can never get both of them on the phone at the same time, but he develops, this is Robin Williams, he develops this relationship with this kid who lives in Wisconsin. And so much so that he travels out there to see what's going on with them. And from there, it goes weird. It goes very, very weird because it seems like she's hiding something. It seems like the kid's hiding something. It seems like Robin Williams is hiding something. Like,
Did you say
it's
Toni
all-
Collette?
Yeah, Toni Collette.
When did this come out?
This was 2010. 2006.
I feel like I've never even heard of this.
It's one of those. It seemed like Robin Williams made 1 million of these 1 hour photo, Night Listener, Final Cut, like weird, just quirky, dark movies that he's really good in. He's really good in this too. This is actually probably a recommend, but it's not perfect, but it's very interesting.
Alaska, Christopher Nolan, Pacino movie.
Insomnia.
Yeah.
Another one. Robin Williams went dark.
I like me some Insomnia. Do you like Insomnia?
I do.
Yeah.
I didn't the first time I saw it. It has grown on me greatly.
Yeah,
on
me too.
repeat viewings.
Then we have a TV movie called Seduced by Madness, the Diane Borchardt story. I guess Borchardt is a common name in Wisconsin.
Interesting.
Because after our Mark Borchardt thing.
That's
Borchardt
right.
movie.
Listen to this. Okay, so this is Anne Margaret. So it's this woman who thinks that her husband is cheating on her, and so she hires these high school kids to track him. Yeah. He hires these high school kids to track him, and I think they end up killing him, and then they get put on trial. But listen to who's in it. So Anne Margaret is the Diane Borchardt, right?
Mm-hmm.
Peter Coyote is the fucking is the cheating husband, right? Leslie Hope is in this. The kids are Tobey Maguire and Freddie Rodriguez.
Oh, wow.
And Danny Masterson is in this. Like, there's just Dean Norris is in this. There's like a weird thing. And I saw this around. It came on NBC. I don't know if it was a one night thing or a miniseries, but it was 1996, and I was riveted for whatever reason. Like, I was just stuck to it watching this thing. I haven't seen it since, but it stuck with me.
That bodes well.
On to a list.
It's a real story, by the way, the Diane Borchardt
Oh, yeah,
thing.
yeah, it has to be, right? On to the remaining list. We have a movie called Chump Change I've never heard of. It's got, Tim Matheson, Tracy Lords, Fred Willard, Clancy Brown.
Jerry Stiller.
Yeah, Jerry Stiller, Michael McDonald.
This is apparently like an inside baseball. Like, he's a screenwriter. Stephen Burrows is the main guy, and
Okay, and then there's a group of TV movies called Family of Cops, which has Charles Bronson in it. I haven't ever heard of these either.
Yeah, it's Family of Cops. Family of Cops was so popular that it produced 2 sequels.
Yeah.
It's got Daniel Baldwin and Angela Featherstone, who played the hoe maid in Seinfeld. The maid that was a hoe.
Oh, the hoe maid.
Every time Charles Bronson comes up, I think of that Simpsons where they did that Andy Griffith Show thing where, like, whoever's playing Barney comes in and he's like holy shit, you shot Otis, and he's like, what happened to Otis? And he goes, I shot him. And he's like, now I'm gonna go over to Emmett's Fix-It shop and fix Emmett. Then there's a movie called For Keeps, which, again, these are the type of movies that come out because She's Having a Baby came out the same year or the year before. You swear that the idea went from one studio and somebody was like, we don't want to do that, and then they made their own. And For Keeps is one of these, has Molly Ringwald in it.
It has to have been around the same time as that Phil Collins song, right? This is 2 weeks in a row. I'm gonna bring
Playing
up.
for Keeps.
Yeah.
Was the name of that song Playing for Keeps?
No, it's In Too Deep is the name of the song.
But he sings Playing for Keeps in the song. Okay, I'm not crazy.
Who was in She's Having a Baby?
That was Kevin Bacon, Elizabeth McGovern.
Oh, yeah.
And it did come out the same year, 88.
Have you seen this?
No, I haven't. This is so I guess after she gets pregnant, a teenage girl must decide whether she should keep the baby or not. So that's not exactly the same as She's Having a Baby, because it's She's Having a Baby is more about the couple is unprepared for it and everything. So it's not like an abortion thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it looks like For Keeps is. Molly Ringwald was probably 18 or something at the time.
Oh, wow.
She's pretty young.
Yeah.
Then we have A Map of the World.
I know this. I
Yes,
saw
you do.
this.
Yes, you
I
do.
saw this or decided not to see this. What is this? Map of the World.
Sigourney Weaver, Julianne Moore, David Strathairn. A woman's life falls apart after she's blamed for an accident on her property.
I didn't see this.
It looks
Chloe
it's similar
70?
title.
It was 1999. It's why I guess there's just one of those movies that goes under the radar in 1999 because there was so much shit. But it was like super highly regarded. Sigourney Weaver got nominated for a Golden Globe, and like it's pretty highly regarded. So I don't know. I just never even heard of it.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Then a Merry Friggin' Christmas, which also has Robin Williams. One of his last, huh?
Yeah, this was 2014. It's crazy. It's got a lot of people in it. Joel McHale, Robin Williams, Lauren Graham, Candace Bergen, Oliver Platt, Clark Duke, just a ton of people. Tim Heidecker, all that stuff. And it's like an ensemble comedy that looks pretty funny, but I've just never really heard of it. But yeah, it was the first film starring Robin Williams to be released after his death.
Then we have Silent Night, which is about a killer Santa Claus.
Mm-hmm.
Malcolm McDowell, Jamie King, Donal Logue.
You think Malcolm McDowell is like overrated? You think so?
I will nod my head yes.
I mean, besides Clockwork Orange, which is obviously all-timer, right? And he's had a few good roles and a few meaty roles, but, like, has he been, like, it seems to me like he's elevated to, like, super actor status. Yeah. But, like,
I don't know. I don't hear enough about him to think that that's the case.
When they announced that he was going to be the villain in Star Trek Generations, it was announced like he was Michael Caine. Like, it was announced like a very prestigious thing, because I remember thinking, the Caligula guy? But I think where he's most effective is stuff like In Good Company, where he's like, or I think he had a run on Entourage, where he did sort of like a snarky, mean,
because it was like
older Brit.
Beverly D'Angelo was the main head of the studio or the agency, and then he came in, or he was the main one and she came in. One of those type of deals.
Anyway, yeah, I do think there's a little overration there.
Yeah, I mean, he is a very good actor, but he's been in a lot of shit.
I just watched a little bit of Jaws: The Revenge the other day, and Michael Caine himself is in that. So everybody has
Michael Caine's definitely got some shit on there, too.
Everybody has their resume blemishes.
Well, Michael Caine took the paycheck. I think we all know. I mean, that's pretty well established about Michael Caine, is that he just liked working and liked getting the money for it. So, he's going to be in some good ones. He's going to be some bad ones. Ben Kingsley's the same way.
Exactly. Good call.
Then we have a movie called The Smokers, which I just looked up and has a 2.8 on the IMDb.
Oh man, this better be like some kind of spin-off prequel to Waterworld, or I'm going to be pissed.
Has Dominique Swain and Busy Phillips in it.
Yeah. And American Beauty gal.
America Ferrera?
No.
Wait, that's American Beauty.
Thora Birch. Thora Birch.
That looks like a poster of a movie that I would watch.
Yeah. But wow, 2.8.
Wow. Yeah, they're trying to sexually assault guys to get back for guys sexually assaulting girls.
Huh.
Them specifically, or just girls in general?
Girls in general, I think.
That's a very dicey.
Apparently, they didn't write that line very well.
Okay.
Yeah, it's probably way more disturbing than it is like funny, entertaining, whatever you want to put in there.
Yeah, I think it's described as a drama thriller instead of a comedy.
Then we have a movie called Strolsek, which
I was hoping that you had seen this.
No, I've seen a lot of Werner Herzog movies. I have not seen this one.
This looks really, really interesting. So 1977, it's about like a Berlin like street performer, like street comic, who is down on his luck, older guy, and goes to live with like his son or nephew in Wisconsin. And it's I think based on a like an actual dude. Yeah, no, Bruno S. is the performer that Werner Herzog has cast in this role, and it's something that I would totally watch.
It's got an 8.0 on the IMDb.
Damn.
Then we have a movie called Trivia Town, which is a documentary about the world's largest trivia contest.
In Stevens Point, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
That's where my family is from.
Oh, really?
Yes,
So
Stevens
let me
Point.
ask you this. How big can this thing really be?
I didn't get the actual numbers, but it was surprising. Now, this was back in, I think, 2006 is when this came out. So I'm sure there's been like 1,000 bigger trivia contests.
Because now trivia, at least bar trivia, is like off the chain. Everybody's doing that.
So at the time, it was super long running as the world's largest trivia competition.
But it still sounds like the name of a town that has 1.5 hotels.
Stevens Point?
Yeah.
God, they have one.
That's all I'm saying.
I've stayed at one.
How many people can be attending this event?
No, Stevens Point is like probably the size of your Olivet. What is that town? Kankakee. Somewhere around there.
Okay, then there'll be plenty of hotels.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's got like a big brewery out there, Point Brewery, which was like one of the world's famous beers long ago, so it got some notoriety. And it's a beautiful, beautiful town.
All right, great. Good enough. Wasn't trying to besmirch.
And then finally we have The Prince and Me, which I am pretty sure I saw because Julia Stiles was in it. It's about she goes to college and meets this dude, doesn't know that he's a prince, and then finds out.
Oops.
Yeah, exactly.
Whoa.
Yeah.
This spawned 3 direct-to-video sequels.
Really?
God.
That's crazy.
There's a whole
There's
world.
The Prince and Me 2, The Royal Wedding, and The
Oh.
Prince and Me,
And our baby.
A Royal Honeymoon, and The Prince and Me, The Elephant Adventure.
Is Amanda Bynes in any of these?
And she might as well, it's Cam Heskin is taking over for Julia Stiles.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
Jesus Christ.
Awesome.
And look at how big the Wikipedia summary is for
I'm
this fucking
telling
thing,
you,
man.
Wikipedia summary is unpredictable.
Honorable TV mentions include That 70s Show, which, of course, that is Wisconsin as fuck all the way through it.
Sure enough is.
That's in a fictional Wisconsin town,
Yeah, I
right?
think so.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's in the song even. Yeah. Hello, Wisconsin!
How many
That's-
seasons did this go for?
It went
7.
from 99 to about 2006. Yeah, 7-8 seasons maybe.
And you really like the show, right?
Yeah, I've seen every episode of it.
Have you really?
Mhm.
Have you seen this? a lot?
No, I watched the first few seasons and I really liked it.
Mm-hmm.
I never got around to watching the rest of it or the spinoff, the 80s show.
Oh, did
yeah,
you ever see that?
I did. Yeah, that had Shyler Lee in it, and can't remember. Shyler Lee was playing like some like real punked out girl in it. But yeah, the problem with making a show like that is you're just too knowing at that point. That 70s show wasn't like trying to lay on the 70s references super thick right off the beginning, and I feel like the 80s one kind of was. I mean, everything about it just felt like kind of like, let's try to recreate that magic, and you can't.
No, that's why Stranger Things is so successful, is that it has 80s references in there, but it's not all about the 80s, right?
You
Same
saw
thing with
that
it.
lawsuit against them.
Yeah.
got dropped as fuck, right?
Huh?
So there's a guy that they met at a
Oh, dropped
writer's
as fuck,
mixer. Yeah, and he had been suing them. They were about to have to go into court and testify, and then like 14 days out, like he dropped it. And his statement was like, basically, I have now been shown documents that prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that they came up with this way before they ever met me.
There you go.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Wow.
Hey, was everybody super young in that 70s show? When I know Mila Kunis
Well,
was.
yeah, Mila Kunis was 14.
She that young?
I think
Wow.
so.
She was super young.
Because she had. I would love. I think Mila Kunis probably has an awesome biography. Like she came, she was in Russia. I think her family moved from Russia. She didn't know any English. I think learned English from television and stuff like that. But like the auditions for this, I think they said you had to be 18, and she just somehow talked her way into it and got them convinced that she was 18.
I mean, she's obviously very girlish, but she's mature. Her character is mature, like from the get-go, right?
Right. But everybody else, I believe, was 18. I think the youngest might have been Laura Prepon.
Oh, really?
Because I think she was like right at 18.
I think Masterson's probably pretty old, though.
Masterson's older than me.
Yeah.
I think he was born in like 76. But Topher Grace was 78, 79. Ashton Kutcher was 78, 79. They were all in that, whatever. But Mila Kunis was born in 83. And,
Man, this show launched a lot of careers, man.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, it sure did.
And it had like a bunch of guest stars on there too, right? Like
Yeah.
a ton of like
Oh, yeah, there's some
established
people
stars
who
will be established.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who eventually become famous for other things that are on that show. I think Gaffigan, before people really know who Jim Gaffigan was on the show. You had Seth Meyers' brother.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Then you had like people like Jenna Fisher was on it, and yeah, there's a million people.
Tommy Chong was on it way before Cheech and Chong got
yeah, yes, he was.
Man, there was a minute there where Wilbur Valderrama was like a thing.
Yeah,
wasn't he dating Lindsay Lohan?
Yeah, he was a guy who dated everybody though.
He dated everybody,
yeah,
right?
That was a famous Howard Stern interview, or I
really?
think they went down his laundry list. But like
they went down on it.
they did. Not to compare people to laundry. I'm just saying it went down his list.
Yes.
But no, it's funny that I was watching a marathon of these one day, and they had some like bits in between where they had some interviews with some of the cast, and Ashton Kutcher said, look, you see these guys, they obviously think they're the most popular kids in the school, but you go in about 6-7 seasons, no one new has joined the group. So maybe they're not as good as they think they are.
They're wasting time getting stoned downstairs.
Yeah, man. Other shows, big shows. Happy Days was huge.
Oh yeah.
Did you ever watch Happy Days?
When I was a kid, I've probably seen a lot of the episodes. I couldn't tell you any of them though.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Was this allowed in your?
Yep.
Was it really?
Yep.
Wow. Did you like it?
You know why I think it was allowed?
Mhm.
Because it had that kid from Andy Griffith Show on it. I'm serious. I think he said wholesomeness, and there's nothing wrong with that
What,
show.
you mean,
It was perfectly wholesome.
You mean Ron Howard?
Yes, that's what I mean. Yes. Sorry.
I thought you were being funny. I was like,
No, I wasn't thinking of his
I just
name right
didn't want to be oh, you mean Ron Howard, right?
No, but I think the show is ultimately pretty wholesome.
Yeah.
The only thing you could probably bark at would be Fonzie having like 2 women on each arm.
Yeah, Fonz
Yeah.
fucking tore through Wisconsin.
Yeah,
man.
he did.
I suppose so. Yeah. Yep.
It was a nice show, though.
Yeah. No, I think
enjoyed
so.
it. I would probably enjoy it. Like, I bet it would hold up. Of course, you had the excellent callback back in 94 with the Buddy Holly video that Weezer did.
Yeah.
You remember that video?
The spinoff was Laverne and Shirley.
Mm-hmm. Schlemazel.
Yeah, which has that whole big Milwaukee thing at
That's
the
right.
beginning of it.
That's right.
I watched a bunch of Laverne and Shirley. I couldn't remember what any of those episodes. I really repressed a lot of my childhood.
They run together with me with the Cagney and Lacey episode.
No, yeah.
Vern and Shirley, Cagney and Lacey,
Oh yeah, yeah.
Rizzoli and Isles.
Oh yeah, for
Cagney and
sure,
Lacey.
for sure.
They moonlighted as beer bottlers. And then their regular career was private investigation. I love Laverne and Shirley. I
Yeah.
bet there's some humor in there that I'm positive went straight over my head. It was funny to me because of like the Lenny and Squiggy. That was Michael McKean, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And all that interaction and all the broad comedy. But I bet there were some references in there that were pretty subversive.
Oh,
if you
yeah.
go back and watch it now.
Oh yeah, and then Step by Step, which was part of that TGIF lineup on ABC.
Did you ever watch it?
I did, and I can't tell you anything about it. I don't even remember who was it. Patrick
Duffy.
Behold, my Patrick Duffy leg.
Yeah.
Patrick Duffy is the only thing I remember about that show.
You remember what I'm
Step
talking
by
about?
step, day by day. Yep. What now?
The Patrick Duffy leg.
Yeah. The beast in South Park that has the
I don't know what you're talking about.
He holds. He's like this beast that lives at the top of a mountain, and he's like, "Behold, quiver in my presence. Behold, my Patrick Duffy leg."
Yeah.
And he fills up with
At
Patrick Duffy. Too.
At first, it's Eric. It's Eric making it up. Like it's obviously he's making it up. But then by the end of the episode, a real one comes down and has a Patrick Duffy leg. And then there's another episode where they're recalling everything wrong. They're remembering everything wrong.
Yeah.
They're on the bus and they're trying to get saved off the bus. They're remembering all the. It's like a clip show, but they're remembering everything wrong. And like it's TV announcer Brett Musburger is. And it's like, hello, I'm Brett Musburger.
This was Suzanne Summers too, and kind of her.
Yeah. Then there's Picket Fences, which was Tom Skerritt and right.
Yes.
Barrett had that. I'm looking at this.
No, I'm looking at it because this. Did you ever watch this?
I think I saw like one episode of it.
Did you watch it? Because it was like a small town mystery type of thing, right?
I watched the first half season of every David E. Kelly show, and then I lose interest. So
Yeah.
Oh, really?
yeah,
You lose interest?
yeah.
So David Kelly is Ally McBeal, and is he the Boston legal?
Yes.
and Picket
The
Fences.
Practice.
I think the Practice. There's one more before Picket Fences and Ally McBeal.
I think I'm with you. I stuck with Ally McBeal for almost the entire time. But yeah, I kind of lose interest too. But I'm totally on board because they've got a great look. They've got great writing. Probably he just bailed like mid-season on writing.
maybe.
And just, passed it off, and that's probably what suffers.
And he's married to Michelle Pfeiffer.
That's a nice couple.
Mm-hmm.
That's a nice pairing. That's a handsome couple.
Yeah, I would say so. And then finally, soap opera The Young and the Restless
Mm-hmm.
was set there. And I have seen a lot of Young and Restless, by the way.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was in Wisconsin.
I didn't either.
But
there was there was that back in the day where like you'd be a kid and you'd be, it's a summer day and you'd watch Price is Right, and then Young and the Restless would come on right after that, and like you're like, I'm so lazy, don't want to get up. I'll even watch the Young and the Restless. So I watched quite a bit back in my day.
Yeah.
All right, guys, it's time to talk about Mubi again.
Yeah.
And they've got a whole bunch of cool stuff going on right now. They've got a lot of documentaries. One of them I watched was called Tabloid.
Ooh. I was anxious to watch that one.
Yes, Tabloid is very good. It's from Errol Morris, who did The Thin Blue Line. It's about this woman who falls in love with a Mormon missionary, and then the guy disappears, and she's like, I'm going to find this guy. So she goes to LA, and this is from her words, by the way. So some of these things that she says, I don't know if it's entirely true or not. That there's other people who think they know too, and it's one of those kind of documentaries.
I tell you what, you said Mormon prophet something disappears. I totally forgot you were even talking about a documentary.
It's The Vanishing.
Yes, but she goes to L.A. and works 3 jobs or something so that she can hire a private investigator. And private investigator finds out that this guy has been taken to England because it's part of his mission. His missionary work and everything, and the Mormons basically took him out and said, "Hey, you're going there now," and that's the most important thing in his life. So she goes out there. Basically, from her words, she doesn't kidnap him, but she takes him away, and then the story gets salacious. They take her. She takes him to a place in Devon, England, and according to one of the guys, she chained the guy spread eagle on the bed, and she had sex with him.
No.
Until yeah. And then she thought that they were going to get married. She felt like she had finally broken through because he was brainwashed by the Mormon church and everything, and because she claims that he thought that the Mormon church told him that she doesn't love him anymore. That's why he went to England without saying anything. Ooh. And so she had help. She had help from this one guy who the movie seems to think was in love with her, but just was unrequited. A pilot who took them there, a private jet to England and everything. All these people were involved in this case, and she became this sensational tabloid case. And because the story about her chaining the guy to the bed and all this other stuff got out, and then she claimed that was her first time she'd ever had sex, but then the Daily Mirror tabloid found that in L.A. she used to pose for nude pictures in bondage and chains and all this stuff, and so the story just keeps getting
what a fucked up story.
And oh yeah, by the way, did I mention there's dog cloning in this? Fuck, that's how bonkers this documentary is.
That sounds amazing.
Yes.
That sounds amazing.
It's fun. It's a fun. It's totally Errol Morris has this sort of style. And I'm assuming he shoots a person talking to the camera dead center, but it's a really wide shot.
Oh.
So every time someone, and I mean, it's condensed on the screen, so he can sort of place where he wants the person in the frame, where it has the same background, but they can just keep talking without him saying, "Hey, okay, stop." And now finish that or whatever. So I think that's what he's doing on that. And that's what he does in a lot of these. He did that in The Fog of War as well. But anyway, he does that. He has that kind of that style. And it's just funny. Like when people start talking and they say some of the most craziest things, the one guy's like, yeah. And she had him spread eagle, and the word spread eagle comes up on the screen. Anyway, that is a really good movie that they have on right now.
That's awesome.
Jeez, yeah, man. There's a lot of good selections. Just as we're recording today, the movie that we just talked about, Antichrist, the Lars von Trier movie, that's extremely interesting. extremely well shot, very, very different content. Yes. I mentioned that I think I would recommend this, watching it at least once. There's some questionable content in there. But what I want to talk about that's still on as we post this is a movie called Listen Up, Philip. Have you seen this? Have you seen this?
No, it's like the next one on this service that I want to watch.
This is Alex Ross Perry is the director for this. He just has a new movie, Her Smell, out right now.
Mm-hmm.
And this has got a great cast. It's got Jonathan Pryce, it's got Elizabeth Moss, and it's got Jason Schwartzman as kind of what's supposed to be the lead character. He's Philip, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he is this irascible asshole. He is maybe the worst character I've ever seen on film. And I swear, like, without murdering somebody, right? and even worse than some murders.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he is irredeemable. Mm-hmm. And I won't spoil how it ends, but, like, it's almost like he gets more and more entrenched. And so his girlfriend, he's a writer, or he's a novelist, and he is wrapped up in his bullshit, man. Like, he is all about him.
Like me.
He pushes exactly like you. He pushes everybody away, but some people find him endearing, right? Including his girlfriend, played by Elizabeth Moss. Elizabeth Moss is, I think, one of my favorite actresses.
Oh, yeah.
She's amazing. And she's amazing in this and becomes essentially the main character, even though maybe she doesn't have the most screen time, as she tries to distance herself from this character. And you know what she can do really well? She's got a great cry face. She can cry like no other actress I've ever seen. She can cry to where she's not moving a muscle in her face and like a tear will drop. Or she can get scrunched up and really like into it, or she can do somewhere in between. She actually did the music video for that On the Nature of Daylight song or piece of music that we really like. They did a music video of her literally in one take, or supposedly one take, of her just walking down a city street and like down a hallway, and all the while tearing up. She does that a lot in this movie, and it's incredibly impressive. So I watched this movie and I'm like, it's a very New York-y movie. It's a very quirky movie. It's about writers and shit like that. And I was like, for some reason, like, this should be kind of like just a paper-thin premise, pardon the pun. But it stuck with me. And so I went back and I read reviews about it. Some people said, like, it's one of the modern cinema's, like, lo-fi budget, one of the best of this millennium.
Wow.
It's amazing.
Gonna
I would
have to watch it then.
totally recommend it. Now, it is very low budget, especially given the star power on this. There's some sound issues. He's got a style of handhelds that have extreme close-ups.
Are the cars made out of cardboard?
The cars are made out of cardboard. They're just kind of running along. It's fantastic. So there's a lot of stuff on here. It's crazy. Like all of our movie advertisements, we're essentially just talking about movies.
Yeah, and I'll even talk about one more, and I think Jeremy's seen this too. Tape.
Yeah.
Richard Linklater's Tape is this movie, if you've ever seen something like Oleana, the David Mamet thing, or if you've seen Doubt, it's got that sort of feel to it, because it's about an incident that we don't know the truth about, and it's characters arguing about what happened in that incident. Tape sets up as Ethan Hawke is this guy who has come out to Michigan to see his buddy Robert Sean Leonard's new film that he's made. That's been 10 years since they've been in high school. You get the sense that they haven't really talked that much over the years, but they still kind of remained friends. And Ethan Hawke is he's an absolute dick. And in fact, Robert Sean Leonard, you could probably make a bonus round out of the times Robert Sean Leonard says stop being a dick in this. And Ethan Hawke is he's drunk and he's a drug dealer and he's got all these like shady things about his character and everything. But then they start talking about a girl that Ethan Hawke used to date in high school that he knows that Robert Sean Leonard had sex with just before they were done with the graduation and everything. And he implies, because he never got to have sex with his girlfriend and that she went and had sex with him, he must have raped her. So there's a whole big like conversation as to did you or didn't you? And Robert Sean Leonard is always saying, I don't think I did.
Mm-hmm.
And the truth is always like just out of everybody's grasp here. Ethan Hawke doesn't know for a fact what happened, and Robert Sean Leonard doesn't remember it the way that he thinks that it happened. So it gets to the point where he's like, well, maybe I was a little rough. I don't know. And then eventually he admits something that was rough that's not rape, but he does admit it. And Ethan Hawke's been recording him the whole time.
Yeah.
And then the girl that they're talking about is Uma Thurman shows up in the room. And then there's a whole new perspective about what's happening. And she has probably the best line in the movie where she's like, you wanted the last word, but it's not yours to have.
Yeah.
And her perspective on this, by the way, is very interesting. I will leave it there if you've never seen tape. I found this is the second time I've seen it. I enjoyed this movie a lot more than I did when I first watched it, which was back in 2001 when it came out. And I highly recommend this one as well.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. Three solid recommends.
That's right.
That you're not going to get anywhere else. And the movie wants to let you watch 90 days worth of movies on their service for
$1.
$1. $1. I'll send you $1. Mm-hmm. That is a great deal.
Yeah, man.
And I think it's worth the price of admission for any one of the three movies that you just heard recommended.
Yeah, it's limited time. It's just for the Cannes takeover. Cannes is in the Cannes Film Festival. So limited time. I think it's May 24th. I'll check that before I post this. But if you sign up before May 24th, 3 months for $1. If you happen to be listening to this after May 24th, 2019, you can still go to mubi.com/CinemaSins, mubi.com/CinemaSins, and our regular 30-day free trial offer is still good. So you're good either way. You're just gooder if you do it now.
You're just gooder now.
Yes.
All right. We'll get you some movie.
That's right.
Do we have time for recommends and warns?
Yeah, baby.
Totes Amazeballs.
They're great.
It won the Academy Award
Oh, for what?
for Best Movie Ever Made.
I can't wait.
Okay. So, anybody want to start us off?
I'll start off with the warn.
Oh,
Okay.
He's angry. It's an angry
Let's
bear.
do it.
Extremely evil, shockingly wicked, and vile. Now, I have to look at this in my notes to get that title right.
It's a
Yep.
terrible title.
That's a problem with this movie, but that is far from its peak problem. So this is the Ted Bundy Netflix Zac Efron movie. Have either of you seen it yet?
I haven't.
It's at the top of my Netflix page, basically. So I was like, I'm going to take a chance on this. I hadn't seen a single review about it. And so Zac Efron is playing Ted Bundy, and I was expecting to see some sort of like, okay, he's charming, obviously. We all know the story about Ted Bundy. He would charm women into, letting their defenses down, and then he would brutally murder them. At least 30 women, right, that we know about. So he's like, talk about Jeffrey Dahmer. He's up there in maybe the worst serial killer in American history. And so it starts off just like that. He is seducing this woman, and he eventually comes into her life. She's got a young daughter. They're shown with like stock footage, like home video stuff, getting along, doing the family thing. He's a doting boyfriend and all this stuff. He's a law student. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, all right. Now we're going to see the real shit underneath it come up. And it kept on going. And then it switched to Bundy's perspective. And he's like, I'm going to fight this. I'm innocent, this kind of thing. And to where the girlfriend isn't even in the picture anymore. So it's not like her story anymore, even though it's based on her story. And I kept waiting for them to show the underbelly, to show the evilness behind this guy. It never happens.
Yeah.
It never fucking happens. He's the protagonist of this story. Now, I've read reviews to where people are reading into this and saying, well, the movie is taking a stand saying that this is the outward persona that everybody saw, and that's what makes him so evil, is that, even the viewer is seeing just the superficial, positive side of this, when in fact there's this underlying thing. Fuck that. Fuck that. That's a disservice to all the victims. The best the victims get, by the way, is a fucking title card at the end of this movie that flashes up for probably 8 seconds all 30 of their names on the same fucking card.
This was, and I think Joe Berlinger did both of these, and that's a shame because Berlinger did all of the Paradise Lost documentaries that are so good.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the main criticism with his documentary that he made on Ted Bundy, is that it didn't have anything about the victims in it. Now, I watched it and enjoyed it.
You saw the documentary?
Yeah, the documentary. And I enjoyed it however you enjoy a movie, or a series about a serial killer. But but they're right. They're right. There was room, especially in the miniseries form, to focus on the victims. Now, the movie itself obviously is taking that. It's the judge, what the judge says to him when he's sentencing him.
Who's played by Sudden John Malkovich, by the way.
Sudden John Malkovich. Yeah, I can just imagine him chewing into that, too. You're extremely evil, shockingly vile, and wicked.
He actually doesn't. It's
do
one
that?
of the most understated John Malkovich performances I've seen.
Oh, really?
There's sudden Haley Joel Osment in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of weird sudden things. Your girl that you were talking about, Kaya.
Oh, Scodelario.
Scodelario is in this. Lily Collins plays the girlfriend. There's good performances. Zac Efron is really, really good in this. But I refuse to buy into the concept of this movie.
I think after these two things have come out, surely there's somebody out there who's like, let's take it from their perspective instead and tell that story. Instead of, because the miniseries cannot stop telling you he was so good looking and charming.
Yes.
And,
fuck you.
Right.
Fuck you, documentary and fucking movie.
So, I'm not surprised that you didn't like this, and I'm not surprised that once again, because Berlinger did both of these, that the focus is more on Bundy and how charming he is than it is about the killings.
It is. It's like they treat Ted Bundy in this movie like Leo and Catch Me If You Can. Like, oh, he's going to escape. You're rooting for him to escape.
Yeah.
And, he tries to get out of this prison. You're like, oh, he's going to make it. He's going to make it. And you find yourself rooting for this character. And I refuse to take that position. And this was written on RogerEbert.com. So with the utmost respect, I refuse to, I differ in opinion to say that we're presented with this facade and we're supposed to read underneath it. Fuck that. No. The movie is presented like he's the hero of this fucking story. And it's like the P.T. Barnum thing, right? If it weren't based on a real person, maybe you would. Maybe you would have some questions about whether this is real or not, that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
But if you base it on the actual person, you're fucking the victims again by holding him up, by putting him up on a pedestal.
Yeah.
It was like viscerally offensive to me.
Well, and it's frustrating for me when there are current modern killers. They tend to be in America and they tend to be mass shooters. But there was a swell for several years there of let's stop reporting this person's name. That's part of what drives the next guy to do it. And the most recent one, from my news consumption, it worked.
Right.
I don't know the name of the shooter. I know the name of the kid who jumped on him to stop him.
Right.
But if we're going to come around in 25 years and make movies about the shooter,
exactly,
then what's the fucking point?
Exactly.
Yep.
No, this is total glorification. I haven't seen that miniseries, but I've read about it to where it focuses because it's the Ted Bundy tape. It's his conversation, right?
Yeah.
And
that's what I took from it. Like, I understand you want to see the victim's perspective, who they were as people, all of that. But I never felt like it was framed that way. And unfortunately, the movie that this title basically just says this is what kind of movie you're about to watch. So they have a chance there to try to do that, and they didn't. And so there's a failure on that part.
It really is, and they've got all of it built up. Like there's also sudden Jim Parsons in this movie. Acting not cartoonishly Jim Parsons-y. Yeah. He's the prosecuting attorney.
He's like that in Hidden Figures. I think he's sort of getting away from that.
Yeah, he's actually really good in this. He's the lone hero, basically. He's the prosecuting attorney in Florida that finally gets him. You could focus more on like his strategy and like the hurdles that he had to go through with the publicity. It was the first ever televised trial in America. The fact that there was these adoring girls showing up to the courtroom that were in love with him, and like his upward climb, even though the case itself is a slam dunk. And no, we wanted to focus more on Zac Efron's, Ted Bundy defending himself and making him the star of the show.
There was even a girl, I think they showed in the footage in the miniseries, that had a sign that said, "Murder me, Ted."
Jesus fucking
Christ. It's not unlike the R. Kelly groupies.
Yeah. It's that fame. It's fame, isn't it?
Something about fame, man.
I mean, he was articulate. He was good looking. Fuck you, man. I mean, exactly. That's what offends me most. Is exactly what you said, Jeremy. Is if we're propping this guy up 30 years after he got executed, what's the motivation to not do that if you have those proclivities?
Yeah,
right?
No, I'm with you.
Yeah.
My next Netflix viewing, by the way, is going to be this Chinese blockbuster, The Wandering Earth.
Oh yeah.
By the way. Mini aside, I saw about 12 different versions of the same headline 3 or 4 days ago. Third highest grossing movie of 2019 hits Netflix and no one notices. And I'm like, okay, but the article spells out it was a Chinese language, Chinese blockbuster that I'm not even sure it had a theatrical release in the U.S. So, of course, no one notices because in the U.S., the Americans don't give a shit. We don't know anything about it. But I'm like, I'm curious, right? Then yesterday I read a headline that sealed the deal, and it said, $700 million grossing Chinese blockbuster, The Wandering Earth, is unwatchable.
What?
And I am all in, baby. Yeah. 2.5 hours of Chinese language unwatchable sci-fi? I am all in.
Is it sci-fi?
It's sci-fi, baby.
Yeah,
I can't wait. That's my next Netflix watch. It's not even a recommend or warn. I just wanted to bring that up.
Do you have anything?
I do.
Okay.
I have 2 recommends. I'll use one in each round.
Okay.
I'm way late to the party on this. So if you want to leave comments telling me how late to the party I am on this, it's fine.
You're late to the party, Jeremy.
It's a podcast. I think it's had 4 seasons. It's very popular. Celebrities like it. So popular, they made an HBO special very recently that has just begun running on HBO, and I watched it. And it's called My Dad Wrote a Porno. Have you heard of this?
I saw most of that first episode.
Well, I think they only made the 1 episode on TV.
Oh, okay.
And the rest is all podcast. I was in tears laughing.
Oh, yeah.
So the basic premise is it's 3 British comedians, 1 guy and his 2 friends. And his dad used to and still does write self-published, terrible, softcore porn fiction.
Yeah, it's like dime store erotic fiction, right?
It's like penny store erotic fiction. And the premise of the podcast is every episode he reads a chapter from one of his dad's books, and that he and his friends just react to it in real time, not unlike a Sins video or Mystery Science Theater kind of thing. So the HBO special is they found some lost chapter that had never been part of any of the books, and they filmed it with a live audience, and it's fucking hysterical. Like there's one part where the way the guy reads it is really fantastic.
Oh,
too,
yeah.
Because he's read it beforehand, but his 2 friends don't know anything that's coming. And so he'll read lines very deliciously, and he's like, and then she opened up her cervix. and the audience reacts, and the girl that's a friend of his goes, now this is a problem. And the main guy's like, yes, now my dad does not know what a cervix is. He simply thinks it's another word for vagina. And then they pause it, and the girl puts on a lab coat, and they pull up this slide projector with the woman's reproductive system and blanked out labels, and she gives like an anatomy lesson on it. Oh my God. By the time it was done, like, my wife was like, you need to quiet down because I can't focus. I was laughing so fucking hard. But apparently, there's only the 1 hour-long special. Okay. So I'm going to have to go back. And I think they've now on the podcast even made their way through all of the guy's current writings.
Oh, really?
I think he's still writing.
I hadn't heard of this podcast either.
He just posts it online like anybody can. And it's so bad to hear his son read it. It's just fucking hysterical.
This guy goes every line, and then they have a commentary.
Yeah, they do. It's really, really good.
Yeah, I had not heard of it either. I'm going to have to check that out.
At least the HBO special, you would dig it. For sure.
Yeah.
I'm going to go on my recommend here and go with the HBO series Chernobyl.
Ooh, yeah. I want to see this.
The show is phenomenal.
Oh, they've had 2 episodes?
2 episodes so far. It'll have 5 total. I was 9 when Chernobyl happened. It was the same year Challenger happened and everything. And, you know, I guess if you were of age, you probably thought the world was coming to an end. I think I'm glad that I was 9 back when this happened, because I didn't think there was any danger. Just something that happened in Russia, and it was bad. Interestingly, you know, after I watched the first episode, which is just so ridiculously riveting, because it starts off with Jared Harris. He's a guy who was helping out with the investigation and the cleanup of Chernobyl and everything, and he's basically making these audio tapes of what his conclusions were in the Chernobyl case. This is like 1988. It flashes back, and you just see this normal couple at home wandering around, and like you can see the plant in the very far background, and this like light come up, and then like later on, this rumbling on their house and everything, and it goes into the plant, and all these scientists are like, you know, what are we going to do? Like they don't know what's happened. They have no idea what's happened. They just know that something bad has happened, and they're reading the Röntgen on it, which is how much, I guess, like it measures sort of X-ray radioactive. Their thing only goes to 3.8, or 3.6, and they're like, it says 3.6 on this, and the guy who's in charge is like 3.6. Well, all right, well that's bad, but it's not horrifying or whatever. But he's not thinking about the fact that it's maxed out and it could be way higher. Yeah. And the whole first episode is these guys who are still alive in the plant, like running around, like trying to figure out, can they find people to save, what really happened at the core, and a lot of denial going on. People who are like, you know, the core exploded, and they're like, there's no way that this core could explode. By the way, that's a big mystery that's going through this whole thing. How did this core explode? The way they have it all set up, it should be impossible. But they're slowly getting to that point. It's sort of a little thread.
They didn't count on Bruce Willis and his son showing up.
They sure didn't. He was in Russia at the time. But it's them going through the plant and everything, and then you just looking at a lot of the stuff, like, you know, the firefighters come out, and everybody's like, you know, there's a couple of mentions where, do you taste metal? Do you taste metal? And then like one guy's hand starts burning because he touched one of these black rocks, which turns out to be graphite, and it's part of the core. And whenever somebody says, hey, yeah, I saw graphite, the people who are like high above are like, you didn't see graphite. The core didn't explode. There's no way that the core exploded. Wow. So there's a whole bunch of denial, and they want to make sure everybody feels like they're safe, so they don't go into red alert mode about this, even though it's pretty clear what's happened. And so like every time somebody comes in and says, well, we measured the Röntgen here, we took in our biggest one, it blew up, so we tried one that was we tried one that was a little smaller, and it went to 200. And so then they start going on that, basically like, oh, it was only 200 or whatever. But even at 3.6, there's a point in the second episode where Jared Harris is like, because Stellan Skarsgård's one of these big politician guys. He's like, and I hear that 3.6 is just like a chest X-ray, and Jared Harris is like, actually, it's more like 400 chest X-rays. So that whole first episode is riveting. It's unbelievably great. The second episode is more about what are we going to do about this? It's the slow come to the realization that, okay, something way worse happened, and we're going to have to do something about it. And the interactions between Jared Harris and Stellan Skarsgård are great in that second episode.
Wow, yeah, those are two powerhouses.
Yeah, and there's a nuclear physicist who is in Minsk that detects 0.8 Röntgen at her facility, which is 400 kilometers away, and she figures it out that Chernobyl must have been the one that exploded, and she wants to help. She's a nuclear physicist. She thinks she has the answers and everything, so she goes to whoever is in charge of wherever she is, and she says, I think that Chernobyl exploded and they need my help because they're doing some things that are wrong out there. And the guy and the sort of the minister of whatever he is like, this is a 3.6 Runkin. It's no big deal. And she goes, it's definitely more than that. We wouldn't be getting any readings out here if it was that. And he goes, well, I like my interpretation better. And she goes, I'm a nuclear physicist. You were in charge of a shoe store before you became this blah, 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 blah. And she's an amalgam of a whole bunch of scientists in Russia back in the day. There's a podcast that they've already started. HBO has already started on this show that I haven't been able to get all the way through yet. But they start talking about how, it's interesting how when Chernobyl happened and then it was over, no one ever really figured out what actually happened. Like you don't know that offhand.
Yeah.
What actually happened. Like you can go through all the technical stuff of Challenger, and you can go through all the, everybody knows the reasons why a lot of this stuff happened. I never understood how Chernobyl happened. And so like that was their investigation. The last 10 minutes of that second episode are tense as fuck. So this is a break the scale, high recommend.
Wow. More than 3.6.
More than 3.6 Runkin. It is insanely good, and it's one of those series that obviously it's got to be a mini series, right? It can either be a full movie or it's a mini series. It's one of those things that's so good though that you wish that they could find a way to give you 25 episodes.
Wow.
So
all right.
There you go.
You know when you go past 3 point.
Yeah.
Never mind. You got a warn?
No, I actually did my warn already. So I've got to recommend. Talk about being late to the party, even though I've seen this about 6 months ago. But it's still on Netflix right now. It's called To All the Boys I Loved Before.
Oh, I remember reading good things.
Have you seen this yet?
No.
This is Lana Condor is the main character in this, and she's a high school girl, and she has this predilection for writing love letters to boys and then not sending them. She keeps them in a box in her closet.
Mm-hmm.
So the movie goes on to have her sister release these letters because they're actually addressed to the boys, and the boys actually get the letters.
Okay.
And that starts the inciting incident and everything.
Sister's a jerk.
Her sister is a jerk, but this is a very interesting movie. So it's a coming-of-age movie. It's a rom-com. It's about a Vietnamese American family, 3 sisters that get along really, really well. Their mother has died, but their father, who's played by John Corbett, is like a successful OBGYN. He has a great relationship with all 3 of his kids. The Laura Jean is the main character. Her sister has just gone off to college, and her other sister's younger, the one that releases the letters. And it's just a really nice, realistic portrayal of high school. It's funny, but it's not like overly comedic. It's more like kind of real world consequences type of thing.
Is it a show or a movie?
It's a movie.
Oh, okay.
It's a movie, and it's absolutely delightful. It got very, very good praise back last year. I think summer of last year is
I'm
when it
almost
came
positive
out.
I'd rather make it another one.
I would go along with it. I think the story's pretty well contained the way it is, but I'd probably revisit this.
It's not a bad Willie Nelson song either.
Nice.
All the girls I've loved before. Never see Willie Nelson in concert?
That's if
I have.
I've never seen someone try less.
That's if Jimmy Stewart was trying to do Willie Nelson.
Yeah, I'm not an impressionist.
I saw Willie Nelson with Bob Dylan in Louisville, and it was awesome.
He was only like singing every other line, and he was.
Oh, you must have got him on a bad weed night.
I may have. I've
heard this about Willie Nelson though. I've heard this pretty regularly about live shows.
That it's not good?
That it's not good.
Oh, man, I must have hit him on a good... Maybe he was trying because he was playing with Dylan.
Maybe.
But, man, yeah, I was impressed with how good of a guitar player he is. Of course, this was 10, 12 years ago. But, yeah, I thought he was good.
Right. I like Willie. I'm not trying to bag on Willie.
But anyway, go, and you guys, I think, would dig this movie. To All the Boys I Loved
All right,
Before.
All right.
Good. I have
got?
another recommend.
Yep.
We talked about this on the road trip a while back, and I think I was the only one who had seen it, or at least the only one that had remembered it. And I watched it again last night, and it's Terrence Malick's Badlands.
Ah, yes.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing that jumped out to me on the rewatch last night, because if you remember, I told you I'd seen it right after I got married about 10 years ago when I didn't have cable.
Yeah.
And I was left with whatever the over-the-air HD channel was going to show me, and it was a lot of obscure movies, and this was one of them. But this viewing last night, it opens with a song, and I'm like, fucking True Romance. You know in True Romance, like their Caribbean steel drum kind of theme where it's like dum 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 dum
Yeah.
That's this fucking movie's theme reworked. I do a little Google foo. Tarantino specifically, even though he didn't direct the film, told the composer, the music guy, I want you to riff on the Badlands theme.
Wow.
And it comes back, and it's basically Martin Sheen and Sissy Spacek's, Killer Lovers theme as it comes and goes. And it made me think, wow, he wrote all of True Romance as some kind of an homage to Badlands.
Yes.
Because they meet, they fall in love way too quick. Her father's not really down with the idea. They run off together, and they go on a killing spree. Sissy Spacek is a little less willing participant than Patricia Arquette, and she eventually leaves him. I don't even know if I think this is a great movie. You can tell that Malick likes good scenery, but he doesn't love it. Like,
so this is before he really
lets the movie
dives into all that
there
stuff.
are activities the humans are doing that make sense that you can follow. There's not a lot of dialogue. And only toward the end, when they get to the Badlands, does he start giving you this, scenery porn that I think almost his entire career has come to be known for. But I really enjoyed watching this. This is super young. This is probably the youngest I've ever seen Charlie Sheen. This came out in 73. Martin Sheen. Sorry. Well, Charlie was definitely young.
Yeah.
Came out in 73. Sissy Spacek looks 12. She's playing, I think, like a teenager. But I had a good time with it. And I'm not even really big on those Natural Born Killers, California, couple in love who like to murder kind of movies. But I really enjoyed it, and I would give it a high recommend.
Yeah.
So the scenery porn at the end, though, it seems like that would be amazing because I imagine the Badlands as being like this almost hellscape type of thing of like browns and blacks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Is it?
There's even a scene where they're driving, and the narration says something about how all of them they were from Texas, so they had never seen mountains. And Martin Sheen says something about, I've never seen anything so beautiful in all my life. And he's looking off ahead. And any minute the camera's going to cut and show you the view he's looking. They're driving literally through the grass, by the way. Not on roads. They're just driving through the grass. And then it shows you what they see. You can see a mountain way off in the distance, and it's pointy. But there was none of that. There was none of that. Like, whoa! I think a lot of his stuff, in Thin Red Line or New World, there's nothing. I didn't even think the Badlands nature porn came close to that stuff.
But it's a recommend.
It's a recommend for me for sure.
Cool.
All right. I have an extreme Wreck-A-Warn here. We talked about this in one of our summer previews or fall previews or whatever back in the day, but the movie Serenity starring Matthew McConaughey and Anne Hathaway.
Oh, Lord God.
This is right up your fucking alley.
Everybody in the world is warning this to me.
Yeah. So when you saw the trailers, it was like, what the hell is this movie? Because there were points where it had Wicker Man-ish type of vibes to it, because there's that point where he's like telling the person behind the counter, like, do you know what's going on here, don't you? And she's like, just stares at him and goes, well, you have a nice day, and blah, 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 and all that. And you're like, what? Is everybody in on it? Is this movie like Red Rock West, where like, she comes in and says, I'll kill my husband, and then he comes back and says, kill my wife, and then it's sort of like stuck in between. None of that happens. But so the story is Matthew McConaughey and his partner is Jaimin Hansu in this. They're fishermen. McConaughey is obsessed with this one huge like tuna that is out in the water that keeps eluding him. And the very beginning of this is him, like, he's almost got him, and then something happens and he just misses. He whiffs. He starts having money troubles because, a trip like that was not to go out to get that big tuna, but it was to get a bunch of other fish and get, like, money for them. And so he starts running into financial troubles. He's like banging Diane Lane, and Diane Lane gives him money. I don't know what the arrangement is there. She says
pretty straightforward.
She says something like you're no better than a hooker, and he says something like I'm a hooker who can't buy any hooks.
Oh boy.
And he's not. I mean, that's just it. He is banging her for money, but like there's some other issue with it. I don't know what's going on. So Anne Hathaway shows up out of nowhere into the bar, and we find out that he used to be married to her. They have a kid. She left him for some dude, and this dude is Jason Clarke. Jason Clarke is like some Miami gangster guy. And she offers McConaughey $10 million to kill him, take him out on the boat, and make it look like an accident, and the sharks eat him. McConaughey is reluctant to do that at first, but sort of he starts finding out that Jason Clarke is abusive towards her and probably getting close to being abusive to his own son. Ooh. And that starts making it personal. And we haven't even gotten to the part where this movie's like the Lego movie.
All I could say is if that elusive tuna somehow ends up helping him kill Jason Clarke, I'm all in.
So let me mouth the answer to you.
Is this on the movie channel, or did you buy the Blu-ray?
I got the Blu-ray. Really, like, I can't be trusted when I go into a Best Buy. I just go ahead and buy all the stuff that's there. I even bought a movie that I bought it strictly because of the parallels. But Mads Mikkelsen is in a movie called Arctic.
Yes.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So there's a polar and there's an Arctic.
Yep.
So I bought that too. But you know, anytime something like that where it's like there's a little bit of intrigue to this, I'm gonna buy it.
Yeah.
And that movie is absolutely bonkers. I can't go much farther than that without spoiling it. But spoiling it would be fun.
Yes. Yeah.
There is a point, but I can spoil this. There is a point where Anne Hathaway tells McConaughey, she's like, she's basically trying to seduce him. And she says, do you remember when we first met? You gave me this ring. It was under a bridge, and this was the first time I ever had sex, and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, yeah, of course I remember that. And then he finally is like, all right, well, I'm going to do this, but none of this means we're back together. And then they start having sex. and so it's like, it's a terrible, terrible on a boat, shadows in the most uncomfortable place and position possible, sex going on for about 3 pumps. And then he gets up and he's like, that's all right. I beat him. I won. I guess because he had his dick in her. I don't know. Don't know what he means by that, but
I have a weird experience with this movie because I wanted to see it. And so I read the reviews about it. It totally got spoiled on the whole narrative structure of it.
Okay.
And because it was such a weird narrative structure, I kept reading about it. I was kind of borderline obsessed about reading about it. And so I come over today and get here a little bit early, and Chris is watching like the last 20 minutes of it. And I get all set up here, and I go down, and he has paused it nicely because he doesn't want to spoil the ending for me. And I was like, don't worry about that. I want to see the ending to this fucking movie. And it's as bonkers as I thought.
It's
insane. Bonkers in a weird, different way. And then he went back and showed me that sex scene.
It is verifiably insane. And I don't think that I really don't think that the thing that we're not talking about has anything to do with it. Like, it does in a literal way.
Yes. Yeah.
But it doesn't in like any like meaningful way. It's hard to explain. But Recca Warren, it's definitely on the Warren side more than it is recommend.
It's worth a watch, though.
But you have to see how ridiculous this movie is. Okay, well, that'll do it for this week. Keep going to SinCast presented by CinemaSins. CinemaSins Twitter. We have SoundCloud. We have CinemaSins Patreon, and you know what? And CinemaSins Discord. There were some very helpful people who were giving me links to how to get into Patreon and invites and stuff like that. But if you want to be invited onto Discord or whatever, then come on to SinCast presented by CinemaSins, and I'll give you a link.
Awesome.
If you want to get onto Discord for some reason, if you can't get on it or whatever. I'm still trying to work out what it's all about and everything.
I like Discord, but it's sometimes confusing.
It is.
We're old.
Yeah, we're very old, and there's some very helpful people on there. It's just that all of this came up like in the past few hours, so I can't tell you all the intricate details of it yet. But go on SinCast presented by CinemaSins, and I can maybe give you a link to get into Discord if you want to get onto Discord.
And if you come to the CinemaSins subreddit, I'll give you a link to something else.
There you go. Yeah.
It'll be mystery links.
Yeah.
You never know what you're going to get.
Oh, yeah. So that'll do it for this week. It's Chris Atkins and Jeremy Scott and Barrett Scher. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening. Comment on our episodes on our SoundCloud page. Check us out on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Reddit. And be sure to visit CinemaSins.com.
You use the IMDb app though, right?
Mm-hmm. Quite a bit. But it has its issues though, because if I want to look for, there's something on the app version of the IMDb that they don't actually include, and it's information I want to. It's like either filming locations. I think it's filming locations.
Yeah, there's something quirky about it.
Or studios they don't put. And a lot of times I want to look up what a studio is, and I have to go all the way to the bottom and find their mobile version of the website.
Well, and that's the other thing is I have to go 7 clicks deep for a piece of information, whereas like if I go to IMDb in a web browser on a PC and I type in Christian Bale and click yes, it's going to bring up his filmography like that. If I open the app and type Christian Bale, it's going to bring up a Christian Bale screen, and somewhere in there is a text link that says filmography.
Yeah.
And if I don't click it, I can't see the filmography. That shit drives me crazy.
It does, yeah. And it's depending on like the preamble, it's in different spaces on the page too.
Depending on what's being advertised.
Yeah, fuck that.
Seriously, there's a certain kind of movie that I will schedule. There's a certain kind of movie out there that doesn't make any money, but it's got the name recognition.
Yeah.
So Mortal Engines, Aragon, Warcraft, all of those have that.
Assassin's Creed
all have the name recognition. So when you say everything wrong with that, then you get, one of those, 4-tiered type of things where like people who hated the movie, people who love the books.
Yeah. And are offended by the movie.
Right.
I actually, when I was wrapping up that script, I was like, Jonathan and I both clearly hated this. Let me go double check, make sure we're not like off on some island. It's got a 26 on Rotten Tomatoes, and I was like, "Yep, okay, we nailed it."
It's an actually like it's a terrible movie.
Oh yeah, I mean, God, yeah. I saw a lot of comments on the video this morning before I came down here that said basically you really do need to read the book just to understand the movie, and because a lot of
are there multiple books?
Apparently,
okay.
Yeah. And this is something I think Peter Jackson bought the rights. I think like a decade ago. The books were popular like in the aughts, like in the early 2000s. And I think he bought the rights somewhere around in there when Lord of the Rings was going bananas and just didn't get around to making them or producing it until now.
I remember seeing the trailer just going, this is going to be awful. And the
trailer was awful.
And they tried to come out with it during a really busy holiday season that, that just had no chance.
And apparently in the book, she's like massively scarred, like she's missing an eye and she's disfigured.
Oh yeah, of course they're not going to do that.
And then in the movie,
they
gave her like one little line.
Yeah, well, there's that sin.
I know, because that lady's making fun of her scars, and I'm like, she's hot, man. What are you talking about?
Who was that girl?
The girl from Maze Runner. I can't say her name.
Oh, is that the same one?
Is it Kaya Scodelario?
Yes.
Oh, she's in the. Oh shit! What did I just watch? Oh, extremely wicked, shockingly.
Oh, yeah, the
fucking
Ted Bundy
violent.
thing.
Yeah. Kaya
Scodelario.
Kaya Scodelario. It
Wow.
sounds like a extreme sport.
Yeah.
By the way, it's Hira Hilmar in Mortal Engines.
Okay.
So it's not the girl from Maze Runner?
It's not the girl from Maze Runner. Now she does look an awful lot like her, though.
Come on.
Look, see, there's that.
Then what is the God? We just wasted 5 minutes. What is the Mortal Engines girl from then? She's got to be in something else.
The only thing she's been in is Anna Karenina.
I saw that.
And the Romanovs.
I didn't see that.
Really.
You know, the Romanovs. You could probably do a whole podcast on what went wrong there. Because
have you seen it?
No, but that's my point. Is that it was the Mad Men guys got a new show. It's about the Romanovs and all these people who think the Romanovs, and it's got literally 300 A-list stars in it. And I don't know one person who saw it.
Was it on Showtime?
I don't know. It obviously didn't get enough buzz or praise.
It was on that new streaming service. Squee.
Squee.
What was it on? Was it on Prime?
It was on Hulu or Prime.
It must have been on Prime.
But
Wow.
I had never heard anyone else. I saw that trailer over and over and over where they say Romanovs. And maybe that's why no one watched it, because the trailer was like, I don't know, an exercise in patience.
Diane Lane was in that.
Wow.
Aaron Eckhart, John Slattery was in that.
Everybody's in that show, man. It's one of those like anthology shows where every episode is a different person who thinks they're connected to the Romanovs.
But it's in the present day.
Yes.
Interesting.
It's a solid premise. I'm telling you, it must be like a C+ or B- for it to have like literally no buzz, no fans, cult following.
Yeah, the series has a 7.0.
Yeah.
On IMDb. Wow. The Romanovs. Actually, no, it wasn't that. God, what was the show I would see? They would wrap entire subway cars in Chicago with this thing. Was it the Tudors, maybe?
Maybe.
What was the one with Jonathan Rhys
New York
Meyers?
when that's the Tudors,
That's
but I was
it?
in New York when the Tudors, so I don't know if that was maybe it was like the 4th or 5th season or something.
It was something like this. It was
when I was riding
Tudors of the
subways.
Romanovs.
When I was riding subways in New York, there were entire cars dedicated to the Tudors,
Inside and out,
yes.
right? Yeah.
Every single placard had the Tudors in it.
That's nuts.
It may have been that or like Peaky Blinders or something. I don't know. It was one of those like ensemble the something, you know.
Yeah.
We tried to buy ad space for a clinical trial on the train because we'd have a lot of potential patients on there, right?
Sure.
And to buy like half of a placard this size was like almost $10,000 for a week. Right? So for somebody to fucking wrap an entire car in that shit,
and multiple ones,
like for multiple days,
they're
too.
spending probably $1 million.
Yeah.
Well, maybe they have a bulk price or something.
Well, here's something that people don't really want to admit. Advertising works, right?
Sure.
Like I saw a lot of buzz, not a ton, but a lot of people leading up to Endgame saying like, well, they don't need any trailers. Why do they even need to put any trailers out? If they could just release this and it would be the biggest move. And I'm like, no. No, you're smarter than the average person. The average person doesn't even know this shit's coming. You tell them 12 times on television in the middle of their favorate show.
Yep.
Well,
there are people 3 weeks into the run that are like, is that out yet?
Yeah. Well, that's why fucking AMC puts Coke ads at the beginning of like 3 ads in the beginning of the movie, right?
Yeah.
To remind people, and you'll see people like get up and like, oh man, I did want a Coke.
I do want a Coke.
Yeah, that looks delightfully crisp.
You know what? I wish I know why they do it. It's exactly what Jeremy's talking about, but I wish they would get rid of the fucking Coke fizzy sound every time they pour a Coke. Is like this, and it's like, yeah, that Coke is not making that noise.
And it's like in surround sound. Like to hear that noise in real life, you'd have to shrink down to Army Man size and jump inside the glass, and then you might hear some little bit of.
Yeah, yeah.
Everything's happening so fucking quickly.
It is because
I don't
6
know
episodes.
why. I mean, I guess I think I figured it out. I just started with I don't know why, and 3 seconds later said I figured it out.
He clicked.
I don't think the actors wanted to keep doing this. And I think that whole like set an end date was as much about the actors saying, I've given 10 years of my life to fucking Iceland. Like, I want to
Yeah,
go.
but they're getting paid though.
I'm sure they're getting
to be
paid.
the actors. I was thinking about this today. I was like, the main thread of thoughts that have been going through my head about this season is like, why 6? Why this isn't a show that was flailing about and HBO needed to get it done real quick.
Right.
This is the biggest show they've ever had, and it makes sense because we've seen so many other shows do this whole like split a season in half and still give you more episodes than one season and all that. So it makes sense to the consumer when it happens. But like all these shows usually had a reason for doing it. Like Lost couldn't go forever, and Breaking Bad couldn't go forever. Game of Thrones, really honestly, they could have jerked off for a whole season.
Give them another
Oh,
season and a half, and I think a lot of the issues we're having, people who are having issues, are resolved. A lot of it, because it's just they're giving me the finger, man.
I don't get it, man.
I'm just saying,
but I don't know if I don't get it because I'm coming into it as not a new viewer, but with fresher eyes.
But you haven't been like adoring the early seasons as you've been like watching through to catch up.
I haven't caught up.
Oh, you've just been watching
I
this
just dove
season?
right in. Yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
I mean, I have a general sense of what's going on, though. I watched the first 3 seasons and then came in.
I just think it's what's bothering me most is that it's either fucking awesome or I hate it this season. Well, every beat is either something I'm like perfect or something I'm like, man, that was really the opposite of what it should have been.
And that hasn't been the case in the last couple seasons, right?
No, I mean, there have been plot lines that are duller than others, but every season has had something great. And I think they did that Hard Home, and then they did that Battle of the Bastards, and they forgot that what made the show great in the beginning was the talking between the characters and the acting and the hatred of each other. And they started to think that their thing was these big, huge battles.
That's how Game of Thrones typically does it. This one, it's just like, well, time for him to go.
All I can say is I'm really excited about that Star Wars trilogy these guys are going to do. Yikes! That is some missionary positionary.
She's a good actress, I think.
She is.
She's better than she gets credit for.
Yeah.
Although she's a little bit of a Keanu in that it's got to be the right role, I think.
You think?
I do.
You think? What has she been bad in?
I really don't want to say.
Really?
Yeah.
Pulp Fiction?
Kill Bill.
She's
the least interesting part of that movie to me.
You're right. Yeah, you're right.
I don't know.
But I don't think she was bad. Yeah.
But she's not bad like Keanu, I guess. But she's
not like Much Ado About Nothing, Keanu.
If you cast her as the president of the United States, do you think people would buy that casting?
Maybe.
In a non-comedy.
I mean, I think I would. I think she's got the chops.
All right. I think she's veteran casting agent that I am. I would not cast her in that role.
I think she's just a touch below like Charlize in range. But I think she's got range.
I think she's got more than we give her credit for, which is what I said to begin with, and I'll go back and stick to that so I don't look like an asshole.
You know what she's really good in? Nymphomaniac.
Oh, what?
Yeah, you remember her part in Nymphomaniac where she comes in? She's the scorned lover, or the scorned wife.
This is the Shia LaBeouf Netflix thing?
Yes, because Stacey Martin, she's fucking her husband, Uma Thurman's husband, and so Uma Thurman takes both of her kids to this woman's apartment and shows up, and she's like, she brings her kids in, and she's like, kids, do you want to sit on the whore bed? That's where the whore does her thing.
You may want to cut that.
I'm just going to quit for today. Have you seen this?
No, but yes, when it first came out, if you're addicted to something, the goal in treatment is to never, ever touch it again. Right?
Right.
Except for sex. You don't tell a sex addict you should never have sex again, do you?
I don't think so.
I know I'm derailing, but I just had this pop into my mind just now because if you're a drug addict, you you're sober,
Mm-hmm.
and the goal is to be sober forever.
Mhm.
Never have drugs again. If you know an alcoholic who's saying to you after sobriety, I could just have one drink, that's a warning sign, right? But the sex ad, is David Duchovny still allowed to have sex?
Yeah, but I don't. There's a certain moderation, right? Like with alcohol and drugs and gambling and stuff like that, it's shit that you don't need at all. With sex or like overeating
Okay,
and stuff
no,
like
this
that.
is good.
Right?
You're saying sex is a basic human need,
Right.
and therefore, okay,
like anger management or like overeaters, stuff
I
like
just
that.
feel like we act like the only positive outcome to end addiction is complete and utter abstinence, but
Mhm.
it doesn't work for everything.
No.
What about video game addiction?
Nah. I mean, that's something that you could live without, I think.
Okay,
I
We're-
could.
We're drawing a hard line here. Sorry about that.
Anyway, American movie.
Yeah.